Good afternoon. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Jess Delos Santos. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today, Thursday. Okay, the PSEi swung between gains and losses at the latter part of the session, but still managed to pull off a last-minute rally to continue its streak for the fourth day. Let's have a look at this one-day chart here for the PSEi. As you can see here, local shares capped off the session higher by 0.6% to 6,718. That further pushed gains by Philippine stocks to 6.3%, at least over a four-day period. This follows that cut made by economic managers on the country's growth target for 2021. That has been trimmed from previous estimates of 6 to 7% to now at 4 to 5% outlook for next year. However, it kept still at 7 to 9%. The Development Budget Coordination Committee cut outlook as lockdowns linger to help curb continuous increase in COVID infections. The DBCC said the strategy is to manage risk by imposing granular quarantines while allowing a vast number of the population to still earn a living. Despite that, some optimism still on local markets as overseas investors bought Philippine stocks today with a purchase of 725.1 million pesos, its biggest purchase yet in 19 sessions. If any stock got picked up today, it would have to be Alliance Global, as you can see right here. The Androtran conglomerate rose by 8% today, its biggest jump yet since October of 2020. Alliance Global now at 10 pesos and 60 centavos a piece. That follows developments on its liquor unit, Emperador, going for a secondary listing in Singapore. It's only fitting that Emperador also surges today, at least picking up on that 13% gain yesterday. Emperador, as you can see right here, now at 17 pesos a piece after increasing by 6.25% on Thursday's session. Other than that, decent gains here among our winners, as you can see here. Boitis Equity Ventures and JG Summit, both in the green by at least 3%. There's also Converge finally also making some gains here after being included in the main index since Monday. You also have LT Group surging by 2.75%. But on the downside here, you can see AC Energy, the day's worst performer, down by 2.3%. AC Energy still can't find its footing since being listed in the main index last Monday. The stock is a day's worst performer, and it's been in the red since Monday and has shed as much as 8.9% since it's found its way on to the PSEi again. AC Energy now at 8 pesos and 56 centavos a piece. Here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. Another debt watcher has slashed its growth outlook for the country this 2021. S&P Global Ratings is now seeing slower economic growth for the Philippines this year at 4.3%, down from its previous forecast of 6% in June. This new projection falls within the government's recently revised target of 4 to 5%. The credit rater says this is due to fresh lockdowns spurred by increasing COVID-19 cases and the impact as well from floods due to heavy monsoon rains. The Philippine Star reports that S&P sees 2022 recovery being shallow and growth distorted by base effects. Now, the government is proposing 240 billion pesos worth of allocation for COVID-19 response under next year's budget. Under the proposal, the Health Department will receive 93 billion pesos for enhancing health facilities, hiring of additional health personnel, and funding for the One Hospital Command Center. The budget also provides 33 billion pesos for DOLE, most of which will be used for its cash subsidy program for displaced workers. The government is proposing a record budget of over 5.02 trillion pesos for 2022. The spending plan is expected to be submitted to Congress on Monday, August 23rd. Now, World Bank Group's International Finance Corporation has invested $399 million in private sector-led projects in the Philippines. The IFC says most of the investments will be geared towards helping small businesses recover from the pandemic. The financial group says Philippines accounts for 10% of its overall commitments in the East Asia and Pacific region. The IFC has invested in microfinance institution Card Bank and bonds offered by Cebu Air and Union Bank. With economic managers cutting growth forecasts due to prolonged lockdowns, the focus now is on whether or not the current ECQ in the capital will be extended. To get some insights, we have on the show the Dean of the Ateneo John Gokongwei School of Management, Dean Luis Dumlao. Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us. Now, you have, again, the DBCC trimming growth estimate to 4 to 5% from that previous projection of 6 to 7%. Is this projection now more on track?
Um, well, basically, what they had before was a around 6 to 7%, and now, as if assuming that the economy will grow approximately 9% for this third and fourth quarters. Now they're saying it's 4.5%. That means just to meet 4.5%, it's the government will have to have a growth of approximately 5% on the third and the fourth quarter. They're slashing out approximately 8%, 8 to 10% of our growth. That's I'm not sure if I agree with that. I think it's quite it's a quite brutally honest for them to be saying that it's that bad. But for me, I think it it's not. I'm not saying that it's good, but I'm saying that it's so bad last year that it cannot be. You cannot have something not as good as that. So I was projecting beforehand that it was going to be 9, 10% for the third and fourth quarter. Now it's probably less, but not probably as low as the 4 to 5% that the government is saying.
So, are you saying, in effect, as well, that growth, at least for the next two quarters, wouldn't be at par to what you previously projected, given now that we are, of course, in a 2 week ECQ in the capital, and there are, of course, chances of that being extended?
Yeah, yeah. We keep in mind that July was still third quarter is composed of July, August, and September, and so we shut down only on the first 2 weeks of August, second to third week of August. We still have September to recover. Uh, of course, the deaths, the cases are still rising, and that's very important to consider. Uh, but with the shutdown, it's projected to. I know it's still on the spike, but with the shutdown that we have, based on the past experience, what happened in April and what happened in around June of last year, the it will eventually uh, uh, the trajectory will start to go down.
Hmm. But do I take it to mean, Dinu Lao, basing from your answer, at least in the first question, that the economy can still actually grow more than what the DBCC is now projecting?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, yeah. It can grow about 8%. But again, this is not a good thing. It's a base effect. It's so
Hmm.
bad last year that you cannot have something as conservative as 4%. I
Hmm.
think we could have 8% still, but it's because of what happened, the base effect, which is what happened last year, which is so terribly bad.
Hmm. In a way, it's not really be disillusioned, but really consider what happened, at least from last year. But
Yeah.
going back now to the ECQ, at least in the capital, can the economy at least afford another extension of that? Or what should be the strategy here to at least strike a good balance?
This is a very difficult question. It has moral issue into it. Uh, but unfortunately, we economists measure lives based on statistical value of life. So if it's just based it on the assumptions that the government estimates are true, they say that the economy in these shutdowns are losing is losing 151 billion pesos per week. So a
Hmm.
shutdown of 2 weeks is about 300 billion, and we have about 2,000 deaths per 2 weeks. So if you do that, are we saying that a value of life is worth what we're saying here is the statistical value of life is 140 million, 140 million pesos per life.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very difficult moral question. Is it worth 140 million to be shutting down the economy? That's 140 million pesos per life. Another way to put it is we are losing in this shutdown. The government expects rough around 450,000 job losses in these shutdowns. Again, with the deaths, are we saying that a death is worth 200 jobs? Because that's what we're doing. We're sacrificing 200 jobs to save one life. And then if we speak of poverty, poverty is going to increase by 170,000 more poor people. And what's going to happen here, again, with 2,000 deaths per 2 weeks, approximately, are we saying that it's 84 more people per death? So it's a delicate balance. We're balancing the two. Is it worth losing 84 jobs to save one life? And it's again, I don't have the answer to that, but it is something that to discern about. I think.
Okay. Well, the reason why I asked that question because now you have some corners, even in the private sector, recommending that there should at least be a re-strategizing on how we do lockdowns. Like, for
Mhm.
example, providing more leeway, especially for the vaccinated, just to improve their mobility, given that they are already vaccinated. Is this a move that at least our economic managers and even the IATF can at least consider?
I agree with that because first thing is first, it's not a binary thing. It's not this kind of shutdown or no shutdown at all.
Mhm.
There is to be some nuance into the strategy that maybe we have some leniency for some people for we have to discriminate that some people are in fact already vaccinated. Uh, but then again, there's still uncertainty. There's risk. We don't know the efficacy. The majority, I think, the most is uh, majority is the Sinovac, I think. But
Mhm.
we're not sure if it's efficacy in the Delta variant. But again, I'm not the medical person to
Mhm.
say that. But it cannot be a binary decision between this type of lockdown or no lockdown at all.
Mhm.
It has to be more uh, nuanced in that sense.
Okay, now earlier you mentioned that it's still possible for us to reach at least an 8% growth for the year given low base effects. But what do you think here are the bright spots for recovery? What are the keys here to actually achieve that level of growth?
The usual suspects would be construction, manufacturing, and of course, whether there's lockdown or not, finance is flourishing. So these three are the key. And
Mhm.
then when we keep in mind the vaccination is not a linear thing; it's actually accelerating. It's exponential.
Mhm.
So as we go through the year, the daily vaccinations will start pick up and because again it's so bad. Imagine 80% contraction in restaurants and
Mhm.
in tourism activities last year. It's so bad you cannot have something like a conservative growth of 10% or so. It will grow a lot, and that's where the silver lining, I don't know if you could call it that, but it's only it's some sort of a recovery of what last year, of
Oh,
2 years ago. Still not as good.
okay, talking about spending, now you have the government setting a record budget for 2022. That's going to be at 5.02 trillion pesos. Pandemic response allocation is at around 240 billion pesos. Is this going to be enough at least to buoy some level of growth for next year?
First of all, that's 240 billion of 5 trillion. That's approximately 4.8% of
Mhm.
the budget, and that's substantial. That's bigger than many. Uh, uh, than in many departments. But I think that's substantial amount. And
Mhm.
at the same time, we have to keep in mind that I think they are assuming that the situation will not be as bad as last year.
Mhm.
So yes, 4.8%, that's substantial, and that is assuming that things will get better next year.
Okay, and lastly now, Dean Dumlao, when do you see the country at least going back to that pre-pandemic level of growth?
Oh, that's a tough question. If we're speaking of the level effect, the level we will not get to what uh, there's a scenario that what could have been,
Mhm.
and we will not get to what could have been until probably 3 or 4 years from now.
Okay, it's a long time coming, but definitely something we're going to keep an eye on still. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank
John
you.
Gokongwei School of Management Dean Luis Dumlao. Thank you, sir.
Thank
And those are the biggest stories this trading day, August 19, 2021. Catch Business World Live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jess Delos Santos and we are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.